Best of r/malicious compliance episode 78. Subscribe for edit videos daily. My roommate and I used to be on neutral terms and live in a shared space. I don't bother her, she doesn't bother me, we live in harmony, and all is well. However, ever since she started kicking me out of my living space on a daily basis because she wanted her boyfriend over, I've been mildly infuriated. When I reached out to her about it, and how I didn't like being kicked out regularly, because I have nowhere to go, which she often responds with go to the library for a couple hours or go get food or something, which pisses me off. She told me I was selfish as a roommate. Of course, I've held it against her since. So the other day, I came back to my room, only for my roommate to be in a serious phone call. So serious, in fact, that she motioned me to get the fuck out of the room. I was a bit shocked at her attitude, but complied. And here's the fun part. In the 30 seconds I was in the room, I heard her talk to a government official about gift cards. I immediately knew that she was being scammed, but she seemed to think it was legitimate. But hey, if you're going to inconvenience my life constantly, you deserve a little bit of punishment. So instead of warning her of the scam, I complied, leaving the room silently without a word, hoping she'd actually be dumb enough to fall for the whole thing without me pointing anything out. Calm as a bitch, because it turns out, she did get scammed. She actually believed that the fake government official on the phone call asking her to put all her money into gift cards and sending them the gift cards code was legit. She ended up losing thousands of dollars. Moral of the story is don't be a selfish bitch, and maybe the people around you will actually help you out in your time of need. Thank you. Next. Years back when I worked in retail, menswear, I was required to wear a suit. Problem. I'm 6 feet 3 inches tall, and at the time I only weighed 147 pounds. I was a 39-inch chest, with a 28-inch waist, but by God I was fit. Even if you could count my ribs at 100 yards on a moonless night. So most of my clothes, including shirts and ties, which were never long enough, had to be made to measure, except for jeans. Expensive. But I looked good. Our area manager came in one day and says, "Nice suit. Is that one of ours?" I opened the jacket to show him the label of a competitor, one that did made to measure. He was furious. Then he demanded that I either A. get my suits from them, the company I worked for, or B. have that label removed and one of ours put in its place. I told him that we didn't have anything like the size I needed, and that I'd been most strongly advised not, under any circumstances, to get a made-to-measure suit from our company, 'cause the people who made the suits never got it right. He insisted that when I needed a new suit to call him, and he would come along and measure me up. Cue the malicious compliance. So, the next time I need a suit I called him and he came along and he took the measurements. After about 8 weeks the suit duly arrived. I tried it on, then phoned him. When he came in I put the suit on and walked out of the fitting room, holding up the trousers with both hands. He laughed and told me I didn't need to do that they couldn't possibly fit that bad. So, I let go, and they promptly fell to my ankles. In shop filled with customers and with all the other staff watching while they served customers. So of course they promptly go into hysterical laughter. Although I hadn't actually said what I was going to do, they knew me pretty well. So they had a pretty good idea of what going to happen. The people who had made the suit obviously couldn't read. The waist was 38 inches. As for the jacket, a family of 4 could have set up camp in it. It was huge. It went back. And he never said another word to me about buying suits from other companies. Thank you. Next. I started cosplaying at the tender age of 15. I was, still am, really, a cool 5 feet 3, so who better to cosplay than one Edward Elric for my first go at it? My parents, like most others, had no idea what cosplay was, but it wasn't illegal or dangerous, so they weren't about to stop me, until they saw the price tag. For those unfamiliar, cosplay is a pricey hobby. I want to say that the costume and wig and boots I wanted to get would have run me $200. I had the money and was going to pay, but my parents refused to let me. They would allow me to get the costume but not the boots or the wig. I was able to modify a pair of boots I owned to work, but their solution to the lack of wig was, well, I had long, light brown hair at the time. My parents' solution was to braid my hair. and sprayed dye it yellow using cheap spray dye from the party store. I don't know if any of you have used this stuff, but whatever brand my mom bought dried into a powder which really didn't like sticking to hair but loved sticking to fabric. My dad is a bit of a helicopter parent, so he wasn't about to let me go to a convention in Boston alone. He drove me there and back that day. Something else about my dad is that he has a real bug up his ass about my posture, constantly telling me to sit up straight whenever I was sitting down. His car had fabric seating. Cue malicious compliance. I sat straight at a board, head against headrest, back against seat. The whole way home, wanted to preserve what little color managed to stay on for the con on the way there. To this day if you look carefully, there's yellow in the backseat of that car. I was allowed to buy a wig the next year. Thank you. Next. Many moons ago, after I married a narcissist a-hole, he started revealing his douchebaggery in subtle, stupid ways. One way was, he stopped doing his chores, and stopped cleaning up after himself altogether. That was really insulting because I had always worked a full-time job, and before we had wed, I had been very clear that I was not going to be a housewife. That we would do things equally. Well, his answer to that was to say that I couldn't make him do anything if I wanted the house cleaned. I'd have to do it myself. Slow burn. For some reason, this made me think of the Simpsons episode with Blinky the three-eyed fish, where Homer says to Marge, she can express herself with her lovely home. So, I replied the way Marge did. Okay, I will, I said, and immediately set to work. Starting with the living room, I gathered my, now, ex's jacket and clothing he'd left strewn about, and tossed them on his computer chair. His backpack and books, also dropped on the computer chair. Then I went in the kitchen and took his dirty dishes, and boom onto the chair. His dirty laundry, plop, onto the chair, which had fallen over by now, etc. etc. Until the house was clean. Yay. Now, my ex couldn't use his PC, till he cleaned up his shit. That first night, he took it like a man. The next night when I dumped all his stuff on his chair, and for good measure, vacuumed the rug and dumped the canister over his crap, he squealed like a pig. What are you doing? I'm cleaning. I answered him, you wanted me to do it all, well, this is how I'm going to do it. He started doing his chores after that. The divorce came later. Thank you. Next. I don't know why, but I always feel like my assistant manager has it out for me. I thought it was just how she was, but everyone else I work with thinks she's this super sweet grandma who cares for us like her own kids. Meanwhile with me, she will yell at me for something as small as not wearing black socks, a rule even the DM doesn't strictly enforce since no one can see our socks unless we left behind the counter. Never lets me call in sick and makes me call everyone to try to cover me, and try to get me to tell her personal details about my life, even when I clearly don't want to. She also refused to donate to my stag and do, telling me I was asking for too much for a ticket. It was $5, please refer to edit 2, but donated when she saw everyone else had at work but her. She's always complaining to me about something, whether it's something about her grandkids or her health, and not to mention, she was usually rude with customers, would leave early, do grocery shopping when she's supposed to be dropping off deposits, take almost 45-minute breaks when they're supposed to be 30, and would usually do little to no work once I showed up, and would spend time talking to her friends/family if they visited even if we had a line. My boss won't confront her about any of this because she's old, she's beat cancer twice, and she's been with the company for over 30 years. Not to mention, she does appear to be sweet with friends and family, just I'm some weird exception? I don't know. Anyway, now that you got to know her and that rant is off my chest, it's time for the story that happened about a month ago. One day I came into work and I see that I'm working with her. Great. I get ready for work as usual and get behind the counter. Ass woman equals assistant manager. Me. Hey, ass woman. How are things today? Busy? Ass woman. Hey, did you close last night? Me. Yeah. Why? Ass woman. You only left 5s in the till. Me. Yeah. Ass woman. Well, from now on when you close I want at least 2 10s in the float. This morning, first customer I had paid with a 50 and I had to give away all our 5s for change. I don't want this happening again. Me. Oh, okay, sure. I think this is a little weird since that doesn't happen every morning. It's not busy season, so why should we prepare for a weird occurrence? Not to mention, I worked at another location and they preferred to have 5s in the till than any other bill. A few days later, I was closing in for the deposit. We not only had number 20s, but we only had 2 10s and the rest of the bills were 5s. Out of curiosity, I checked to see if she was opening. She was. Now, I could have used coins for $5 or $10 to leave her some 5s, but what's the fun in that? I left the 2 10s in the float like she asked, and used all of the 5s for the deposit. So now, all she's left with is 2 $10 bills and some coins. Meaning if a customer even tries to pay with a $10 bill, she has to give them change with coins. She never enforced that rule again. Edit. Changed acronym for ass woman. Edit 2. Added the price of the stag and doe ticket because some people are confusing this post to be on the subreddit r/internet people and are missing the point of the whole post. My point to adding the ticket thing was to say she's cheap and she was the only one at work who had an issue with donating $5. Obviously it's up to her how she wants to spend her hard-earned money that she makes sitting around for hours and yelling at me about socks and going grocery shopping on company time and taking extra long breaks and doing nothing while I live on ramen noodles working harder than her for less. But I guess all that is forgiven because my entitled self asked her to donate $5 once, which she could have won a nice gift basket and a meal for by the way. Thank you. Next. Edit. To clear confusion. EMR stands for Electronic Medical Records. The E/M codes 90212, 13, 14 etc. are evaluation and management codes. What a clinic doctor bills to insurance. The higher the code, the more complex your visit was and the more the doctor charges. So I'm an RN that travels the country teaching EMRs to hospitals and clinics. I've met my fair share of fantastic doctors and a few smile but fantasize about punching in the face doctors. This is one of the latter. I'm at a specialty clinic showing how to document ambulatory visits in their new software. Overall, great staff and doctors. Things are going smoothly, until Dr. A. Hole shows up with his staff. His staff are great. The workflows for their end are working well. I introduce myself to Doc Hole and am immediately given attitude about the software. It's too cumbersome. It's stupid. Designed poorly, etc. I let him chew on my butt for a while. I've got plenty of fat down there and can stand to lose a bit anyway. When he winds down I say, okay, well let's see what we can do to make it work for you. He then goes into his first patient's room for a few minutes and I pull up that patient to get ready. So this software streamlines the billing process. Each click has a purpose and you can see at a glance what the bill will be and what you lack in documentation to bill a higher level. For accuracy, not to charge more. He comes out and I start to show him the flow he needs to follow to get his levels. I get about half a sentence out when he interrupts at "that's stupid" and proceeds to start chewing my butt up and down again. Says he is going to dictate. Show him how to do that. The thing is that the software doesn't read dictation, so he won't get his bill built automatically, which is a huge reason they purchased this software. I try to reinforce that and he basically tells me to shut up and walks away to complain about me and the software to someone in the phone. So I retreat to the staff and help them for a while. Come to find out he skipped all the classes and hadn't gotten any training. The doctor comes back and rips me a new one for not being available because I was with the staff. I get up and he pulls up the patient on his iPad. Show me where to dictate. Yes sir. Whatever you say. You can dictate exams here. And you can dictate your plans here. He proceeds to do that for a patient but decides it's too much and goes back to paper and will dictate at the end of the day. So I help the staff the rest of the day. Alert my boss to the issue and his admin. The end of the day comes and he starts dictating everything. Finalized his notes and continues to bitch to me about how crappy the system is. Okay, that's fine. I just smile. Because every single note he sends out either doesn't have enough to create a bill or only produces a 90,212 which pays a lot less than the 214s he would have gotten if he let me show him the proper way. 3 days later, I hear through the grapevine he's bitched the other trainers out and they backed off and let him have his way as well. So the fallout. Billing finally catches up and most of his PTs got charged way less than they should have been and many of his claims couldn't even be submitted. Last I heard he got reamed and was sitting with another doctor and had to be shown how to document. We were all gone from the site and not available to train. So I was quite happy that his attitude caused him to lose money and now time, and his patients got a discounted office visit. He tried complaining about us, but we all know how to document to cover our arrears for non-compliant trainees. My ass is fine, despite his chewing it out, and he can kiss it for all I care. Thank you. Next. I teach at a college, and we were recently moved into the new building. It is essentially a gym complete with a swimming pool and the college opened it up to the public. One of the rooms is a warming kitchen. It has a microwave and toaster oven. Since this building opened they changed the hours of the cafeteria. It now closes just before my class starts. This leaves no place for my students to get food. It's a 4-5 hour class. My class is an evening class when almost no one is around, so my students have been using it as well. The basic rule is just clean up after yourself. Well, the lifeguards for the pool have decided it is their break room. Last semester there were no issues. Now there are. One Karen in particular chases students out. After she gave me the third degree as to who I was, she chased 2 of my students out. Malicious compliance. I told my students to stand in the doorway and give me their food to warm up. I went to them, carried the food to the microwave and heated it up for them. Then walked back to them and gave it to them. I could see the Karen fuming, so I simply said, if you have a problem we can discuss it with the dean, and at the same time we can discuss your disrespectful attitude toward a professor. She now leaves the room when I come in.